What's going on, everybody? This is Gary B. Jr., your media consultant, here to help you understand how to use FreeShow and OBS with lower thirds for your live stream. Now, I've gotten a lot of questions recently about how to use FreeShow to get the lower thirds into OBS. All right. Now, let's look at this together, and we're going to start in FreeShow. All right. Right now, I've got a song up. I've got this background going on, and this is what the audience would see. All right. They would see this fancy water background, and they'll see the text there, and they'll be able to read it just fine. However, for my live stream, I don't want it to look like this. I want it to actually show a video feed, right? And I want it to show the text or the lyrics at the bottom of the screen. All right. There's a number of different things to consider when this happens, because you're using multiple programs to try to do one thing, and it can seem daunting at times. Well, my goal today is to simplify this process so that you can understand the best route for you to take with your media. All right. Now, first step is you need to have more than just this particular output set up and activated in FreeShow. And if you've got the 1.4.7 update or later, there's a really cool feature that we're going to show in this process as well. All right, so let's go to our settings in the upper right. We're going to activate, or I should say create, a live stream option that's going to show lower thirds only. So if we go to FreeShow and we start with our styles, all right, my recommendation is to always start with your styles and templates before you even go to your outputs. All right. And so I've got one activated here that's called live. I'm going to right click. We're going to remove that and we'll start over. Let's see here. This is a live preset. I'll delete that one as well. All right. So I've just got my kind of my own default setups that I need or that I typically use. And now I'm going to add in a new live stream style that I would use for FreeShow. So I would select add at the bottom, and you got this option that says, do you want this to be a normal preset, which your audience would see? Or do you want this to be a live stream preset? And it's got this little camera icon representing that you're going to show a camera feed somewhere or another, whether it's in FreeShow, whether it's in OBS, and you're going to be using lower thirds or something along those lines in the process. So we're going to select live. All right. Now I've got my live selected as the name of this. We're just going to keep it as live. And so you can just hit enter, that locks it in. And you'll see that there are things that have happened. My background defaulted to this green color. This is a genius idea that FreeShow sets up for you by default. If you are using a hardwire connection, right? So let's say you're using an HDMI connection from your computer into an ATEM switcher or some other type of switcher, you have to use some type of chroma keying, or in this case, I'm gonna call it green screen option, to get the text to be by itself. But you want the background of that text to be green. And then when you put it into the switcher, you'll change the settings in your switcher to make the background, or make the switcher find anything that's green and remove it from the feed. And it'll allow you to actually have this green screen effect to where you just see what you want to see in terms of you see the text on top of your video feed. All right. And that is a combination that doesn't involve OBS. So we're just talking about OBS, but I want you to understand why this is green up here. All right. This is for outside of OBS. All right. A hardwired connection. Okay. Now, this stuff up here, the background media and all that kind of stuff, is not really a big deal. There is the media fit default that's set to blur fill, and the blur fill option just ensures that if you do add media, it's going to fill the entire screen and not leave a portion of it unfilled. And that means it'll put in the entirety of your image, and then it'll do a stretch and blur for the background of that exact same image to fill the screen. All right. And the aspect ratio is preset or pre-done here at 16:9. If you need it to be different, you can select that, and you can say just use output resolution aspect ratio. So whatever your output is, you can just turn this on and it'll automatically default to that for your style. All right. This is set to 16:9, which is the most traditional and universal style that you'll see for 4K monitors and things like that, projectors even, you'll usually have that. Now, as we get down lower, you'll see the active layers. It automatically is set up to where your slides will be active and your overlays will be active, but your backgrounds are not. All right. This is important because we don't want to show, if we were going to have a background like this water in the background that you see in the preview, we don't want that to show up on our live stream. Remember, we want to have video feed be the background, right? So the cameras in the church showing the audience or showing the person on the stage or showing the worship team or the drummer, whatever the camera feed is, that's what you want to show. So that background needs to be disabled, and it's not active. And if it were active, you'll see the little blue line like you've got here. The next thing is the slides. Its default for this live stream style is to have 2 lines per text box. All right. And that means that when you have text on your slide, in this case, I've got 1 text box here that shows this amount of text. It'll limit it to 2 lines. Now, this is actually no more than 2 lines. It's just running over. That last line is just running over, but it will fit and it'll be in the lower thirds there. If you had a slide that had like 4 lines in it, this template or this layout, I'm sorry, would still show the entirety of those 4 lines on the slide, but it'll break it up into 2 slides. All right. So now you got to arrow over once and it'll show the first 2 lines. And then you arrow over again with your keyboard and you'll see the next 2 lines on the live stream. The in-house will still see all 4 lines. Okay. Your in-house audience will not be impacted by this change because this is only going to be tied to a different output that we're going to set aside for our live stream. Okay. Now this next part says override slide with a template. If you have a regular slide, in this case, like lyrics, okay? Because right now it's got a default template for scriptures, but we don't have a default for our lyrics, which is what I have here, our lyrics. So I can go in here and I can select a lower third option. And for me, I label all my lower thirds with LT for lower thirds. And you'll see here all of my different options that are there. This one has LT in it because it has the word default, but you'll see if you go to my website and download anything from Gary B. Jr., you're going to see LT in your actual titles. Like this was a scripture to LT orange. This is LT scripture transparent. And this is LT lyrics transparent. So this is a lower third lyrics. This is a lower third lyrics as well. You can choose any one of these. This is another lower third lyrics as well. And this is a lower third lyrics with a rounded box. You can pick any of those for your lower third, and I call them lyrics, but it's any slide, right? If it's a slide that has bullet points in it or whatever it may be, they're going to show up in this text box. And so for me, I prefer the transparent, but we'll keep it with the transparent. We'll do the transparent lower thirds and we'll close this out. All right. So now you've got 2 lines per slide by default or per text box. And then you've got lower thirds transparent, and then you got the scripture lower third as your template for your scriptures. Let's see what that one looks like. So if I select that and I type in scriptures, what it was called, this helps you get to it a little bit quicker. You'll see this blue box already selected, and it's the scripture lower third. All right. And that's the one that you have selected. And this is a default one in FreeShow, which is awesome now that you have scriptures for or lower thirds for a single scripture, and you got lower thirds by default for multiple scriptures. All right. Or in this case, 2 scriptures. All right. So it's set to the 1 scripture and it's got room for the reference as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit close. And that's already there by preset or by default, I should say. All right. Now we've got the first half of this done where we've got the style decided. Now we need to go into our outputs. All right. And for our outputs, I've already got one here that's called live stream. But if you don't have that, you can select add. And all you're going to do is select if it's a normal output or a stage output. We'll do normal just for the sake of this. And I'm going to call this, well, actually, it gives you an option to pick a style, first of all. So the style that it has here is visual of this one that I call beginner training green, default, FreeShow Friday, all these different options. And you can even skip this option if you want to, and you can not select a style. My recommendation is to follow the prompts and select the style. And the one we want for this is live. So I select live, and now look at what happens. It puts in this green background. All right. And then it's got this option that says enabled. It's on. The style is already set. The output of the screen is set to 1920 by 1080. This does not get us into OBS. All right. This is just a default setup that allows you to have an output. It's assuming that your output is a physical hardwired output. Now remember, if you have a physical hardwired output, you need to have a green screen. All right. If you want to have transparency in it. Okay. But we're going to be using OBS. The beautiful thing about OBS is that it works with a program called NDI, or an interface called NDI. So I'm going to turn on NDI. And now we got some options to activate audio, which you can turn that on if you want to as well. And then the frame rate, this will be default based on what you have set up in OBS. So if your default frame rate is 30 frames per second, then keep it at 30. Some of you may have it at 24 or 25 frames per second, then you would change it there. All right. And then others may go all the way up to 60. It's totally up to you. I'm going to keep mine at 30. And then it's got this option to say transparent. Now notice my window for my output is no longer green. It's actually transparent or grayed out. So if you click it, you'll see these little small squares there. Those represent a transparent background. There's nothing there. Okay. And then it's got this option activated automatically by saying invisible window. Now, invisible window simply means I don't have a hardwire connection going out of my computer for this. I'm literally going to be using this as a fictitious or an invisible window on my computer. Okay. So it's not pointing to an actual screen connected to your computer, and it doesn't even give you an option to select a screen because it's just a fictitious window. And you can change the resolution that you want, but it's not going to let you point it to an actual screen connected to your computer. All right. Now we got that set. I can right click on this and I'm going to call this one, I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it live training. All right. So we got our live training, and it changes the name up here in your preview. That's why it's helpful. So you can know, okay, I've got a live stream feed and I've got my primary feed, and now I'm ready to go. I've got my NDI set up. It's an output that's designed to show lower thirds. The window is going to be transparent. Now, the reason transparent is so cool is because if you're sending a signal wirelessly, it can just be transparent. You don't have to worry about the green screen. And that's what makes OBS such a great combination with FreeShow. So now let's go into our show, and I'm going to select this next slide. Check out what happens. It pops up the verse, or not the verse. This is just a scripture, a song. I'm sorry. So the lyrics are down there, and I've got my ministry feed showing up, and they're seeing this. They're seeing the water background and everything else on the live audience, right? The folks that are in-house. Now let's look at OBS and see what we can do to make sure it shows up over a video. All right. So we got this here. This is my OBS screen. It's going to kind of give you this duplicate window feel, so don't worry about that too much. I'm going to go on my left side. I'm going to create a scene. All right. So I'm going to go over here to the bottom left and select the plus sign, and I'm going to call this live training OBS plus free show. I'm going to put my LT lower thirds. All right. So this scene is going to be for that. Now, you can't see me, but you can hear me. All right. What I need to do, I'm going to do this in studio mode so you guys can continue to see me. All right. All right. So you can still see me. It kind of made some things kind of go wonky there, but you can still see me here. And let me adjust that. For some reason, let me go to my split screen is there. Let's go here to show this, and let's go back. And it's showing up like that, which is kind of wonky. Let's adjust that. Let's go to split share screen. It should look like that. And that's what it's doing that. All right. But this is what it normally looks like. You guys know that. All right. Let's go back into that training one. So we're going to go here so we can see over here what I'm creating. All right. So the first thing you need to do in OBS is create a source. And you got a lot of different options. You got audio, browsers, capture cards, color, image. What you're looking for is your camera that you want to input into OBS. All right. So you're going to connect your camera directly to your computer. All right. And the way you do that is with some type of capture card. All right. And the capture card is it has a USB on one end, and then it has an HDMI on the other end. And so you plug the USB into your computer, and then you plug in the HDMI from your camera. And so we're going to see this option that has a camera icon, and it's a video capture device. And that's what we want to use. And then I'm just going to select one that I've already got. If you don't have any listed here as your existing, you would select and type in what you want to call them. All right. I'm going to go here and I'm going to select GH5 and I'll say okay. All right. And that shows up here. I'm going to make this as big as it needs to be to fill the screen. All right. And I'll drag that out and let's pinch out here. I want to make that to where we can see everything and pull this over. Pull that up a little bit more. All right. Now, the resolution of my camera is not 16:9. That's why I'm trying to make sure this is fitting right. All right. I've got my resolution to be a lot taller than 16:9. All right. So that's done. And you'll see down here, I've got it running off the edge. Those little stripes that you see represent that your feed or your source is running off the edge. And that's okay as long as you're doing it on purpose like I am. So I can select out and it just looks like a regular 16:9. Okay. And that's the first thing. The next thing we need is we need to get that NDI signal from FreeShow. So we got to hit the plus sign here again under our sources, and we're going to select an option in the middle there that says NDI source. All right. Now I've got an option that says NDI source. If you don't have that option, you need to install the plugin for NDI, and it's called Distro AV. All right. There's a whole nother video on how to do that. Check that out if you have time, and that'll help you if you don't already have that particular option. Okay. Now, NDI source, I'm going to call this live, and we're going to call it training. And it says make source visible. That's fine. We're going to say okay. And then we got this pop-up that says, okay, well, you need to select the source. That's the NDI. All right. The first pop-up here, we go from here and we're going to see the options. Originally, it was called output 1. So it's going to be called output 1 there. And then I just say, okay. And there's my lower thirds. This will be going out to my live stream so I can be moved around. I will represent whoever's on stage at the pulpit or the podium. Maybe this is the worship team or whatever camera you're using to connect. You could even have this be a feed from a switcher. All right. If you have more than one camera, you can still put all those devices, all those cameras into your switcher. And you might, instead of it being just one camera like we've got here as a GH5, it might be your Blackmagic A10 mini switcher that you plug in through HDMI. So you wouldn't necessarily need a capture card because your switcher would act as a capture card in that situation, which is great. Okay. But it needs to be connected to your computer with a USB some sort, like USB-C, regular USB is completely up to you, but it needs to be at the bottom or below your NDI feed. And now we've got our NDI signal here coming from FreeShow. And then we've got our camera up under it. All right. So let's go here and I'm going to pull FreeShow down out the way for now. And we're going to arrow through so you can see OBS while I manage FreeShow. Okay. So now I want you to pay attention to this window here. So we got OBS showing our FreeShow feed. I'm going to go to the next slide and it'll automatically adjust. And you'll see it change there. I'm going to arrow to the right one more time. Boom. And then you'll see it change. And notice that it's only showing 2 lines at a time because that was what our default style was set to. I can arrow to the right again. You'll see it show those 2 lines and it's set to auto size. All right. So it's going to make sure that each line, each slide is showing up properly in here. Okay. Now that's one thing, but we also have during a service, if it's a ministry service, it might be some time where you want to show scriptures. So let's see what it would look like to show scriptures. So first thing we need to do is I'm going to pull up FreeShow and I want you to see exactly what I'm doing. So forgive the toggling back and forth, but we're going to go to, let's see here. These are more than one scripture. I'm not going to do that because that one's kind of unique. I'm going to go here to Exodus and we'll go to here and we're going to select this and I'm going to go all the way down to here and I'm going to right click and select convert to show and I'm going to make it be 1 verse per slide. And then I want to split the reference and then we're going to select the option that says convert to show. All right. And now I've got Exodus chapter 2 verses 1 through 22. If I select that, I want you to pay attention to this window here. All right. When I select that, look at what happens. My lower thirds now looks like a box that's white with an orange box that shows the reference. How's that carry over into what we got to do in OBS? Well, we don't have to do anything because OBS automatically gets that because we got it set up to where it shows it. So now I can go through my verses. I'm gonna select the next verse in FreeShow, and you'll see it automatically adjusts the size to make sure that verse fits. This is another one that's pretty long, and it shows you that one. This one's pretty short. It shows you that one. This one's a little bit longer, so it shows you that as well. And it automatically shows you the reference number that you've got here, and it also shows you the verse itself. And it's in a lower third format because the style that we selected in FreeShow said, hey, this is what we want to do if we're showing lyrics or any other, bullet points or anything like that. But we want, when it's a scripture, we want it to default to this layout, okay, with a box that's rounded and then a little orange box that is rounded as well that shows the reference number for our scripture. All right. Now, once you have that set up the way you want, you can be in or out of studio mode. I've got mine in studio mode to show you guys a little bit easier. But if I go out of studio mode, it'll look like this, which is perfectly fine and exactly how it should be looking from my standpoint, but you can't see the actual layout. So if I go back out of studio mode, you'll be able to see from that layout that I selected here, and it's here. So if you want to be in this studio mode, you can go to transition and it'll transition into this particular setup. I can't do that because it'll stop my recording because I'm recording my screen. All right. Now, hopefully that makes sense to help you understand how OBS and FreeShow work together using the lower thirds options. Now, somebody asked in another comment, how do you make the lower thirds go away in OBS when you're done with it for your live stream? Now, there's two ways to look at this, all right? The first way to look at this is, I'm gonna go over here. In FreeShow, everything that you're showing in your live stream in OBS is showing to your in-house audience, every scripture. So this says verse 5. If I go into my live stream, it's verse 5. They're the exact same verse, all right? So whatever you're showing to your in-house audience is going to show to your online audience, and they're going to stay in sync completely. My advice is to make that be your default. To whatever you're showing to your in-house audience, that's what you show to your live stream audience. So if you're showing a scripture and it's up there the whole time in-house, it needs to be up there the whole time for the online audience. That's just my personal recommendation. Now, if you don't want that, you can make some adjustments on your online. Now, the reason why this is not my recommendation is because it does take an extra step. It does maybe require an extra person to work on this and make sure. And then for some of you guys, it may require an additional computer so that it can be somebody separate on another device managing what's showing up on the live stream. Now, when we say another device, OBS is not worried about if it's directly connected to the same computer that's running FreeShow because it's getting FreeShow's feed over the network using NDI, which is network data interface, I believe. Network device interface is what it stands for, okay? So it doesn't matter to OBS if you're using the computer that has FreeShow or not. The only thing that matters is as long as both computers, okay, the FreeShow computer and the NDI or the OBS computer are both connected to the same network, they'll be just the same, okay? It'll be like it's all on one computer because it's going to send that signal throughout the network, and any device that's, in this case, OBS, trying to get that NDI signal, it's going to read it and show it at the same time that you hit the arrow to the right or to the left to advance through your slides, okay? So now you got one person running FreeShow. They're making the changes to the scriptures. They're making the changes to the slides and everything else. But then there's somebody else on an OBS computer. That person would have the responsibility of looking at OBS the entire time. And when they don't want this to show an actual scripture and you want it to still stay on in-house, they can simply hit this little eyeball icon and they can make that go away. It'll just show your regular service, whoever's speaking, whoever's on stage, and or whatever camera you got it switched to. All right. And then when they're ready to bring it back, they can just click that eyeball again and it comes back up to whatever slide that you're on at that time. Okay. This would be another option. Now, if it's a one-man band, that's going to be really hard to manage because you're going to be switching between FreeShow and OBS. I don't recommend that. If you've got more than one person on your team dedicated to the computers, and you got separate computers or devices, then that makes a lot of sense to where you can manage that. All right. Maybe you want to have one computer, but somebody's managing FreeShow from a tablet or a phone or something like that. That's fine. And then somebody's on the computer managing OBS. That's one way to do it. Or you can use Bitfocus Companion and you can make a button that deactivates that source in OBS as well. And you can press that with a button, and that can be something that you can do as a one-man band, all right, or as a very small skeleton crew of people, all right. But I still recommend everything being in sync, in-house with the online audience, because if in-house needs to see it, then the online audience probably will need to see it as well, and it shouldn't be a problem. But if it is a problem, you've got some options. You can just go into OBS and remove it that way, and or make another Bitfocus Companion button on your device that you use in Companion. I've got a tablet that I use. Maybe you've got a Stream Deck or something like that. You can use that as well. But hopefully this helps you understand how OBS and FreeShow can work together to show your lower thirds and to not show your lower thirds if you want to online. All right, I'll talk to you next time. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope it helped you in a major way. Now, at this point, most people would ask you to like and subscribe, and I think that's great, but my goal is a little bit different. My goal is to empower as many people as possible all over the globe. And there's one way that you can really help me do that, and that is to leave a comment below with a question, a thought, how this video may have helped you, or things that were left out that you still have questions about, and to share this video with someone just like you, someone who is looking for answers, someone who's curious and wants to grow. With your help, I believe we can build a community of people that want to grow together. So until next time, God bless.